Final Fantasy VIII is one of the many games that come up when we think about what Final Fantasy games need a remake. Honestly, there's a lot of elements in this game that could easily translate to something similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake style game. And a few weeks ago, I discussed a possible Final Fantasy IX remake, so I figured it would be fun to entertain this as well because I think this one could really benefit from a redo. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about a Final Fantasy VIII remake. There's actually a lot of reasons why I think this could be good. I've laid them out as best as I can, so whether you love Final Fantasy VIII or you hate Final Fantasy VIII, I think you might actually agree with some of my reasons here today. As always, before we get to the list, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on a Final Fantasy VIII remake, whether you want to see it or whether you agree with some of my points here. I'd actually be interested to know. So with that out of the way, let's get to the first thing on the list, which is going to be the visual upgrade. So first things first, let's talk about updated visuals in a Final Fantasy VIII remake. The original Final Fantasy VIII pushed the boundaries of what the PlayStation could do back in 1999. Final Fantasy VIII was the first game in the series to feature realistically proportioned character models compared to the chibi-like designs of Final Fantasy VII. Squall and the rest of the cast appeared more human-like, both in battles and during exploration. This leap in graphical fidelity helped to convey emotions and interactions more effectively, especially during the cinematic sequences, which kind of linked in really well to the FMVs. And however, these models were still constrained by the PlayStation's hardware. Up close, textures were blocky and facial details were minimal. For example, characters lacked distinct facial expressions during standard gameplay, relying more or less on body language and dialogue to convey emotion. I mean, we all know that meme of Renoa saying to Squall, "You're the best looking guy here," and well, I mean, he looks like this. Now, while character models didn't look amazing, the environments in Final Fantasy VIII utilized pre-rendered backgrounds, a staple of the PlayStation-era Final Fantasy games. These static images were rich in detail and gave the game its distinctive aesthetic. Iconic locations like Balamb Garden and Delling City were brought to life with these amazing, vibrant, intricate pre-rendered backgrounds. Now, the trade-off here was that the pre-rendered backgrounds were non-interactive and had fixed camera angles. Characters sometimes appeared out of place due to their lower resolution compared to the backgrounds, creating a kind of a really obvious contrast between the detailed world and the simple character models. So in 2019, here comes the Final Fantasy VIII remaster. Well, to some, quote-unquote, remaster. A lot of people have complained what we actually got. I personally don't care because I grew up playing the original one and we all know what that looked like, so any improvement we get from that is great, honestly. But one big reason why the remaster doesn't look any better is most likely due to the loss of the source code. A few years ago, there was an interview with Square Enix CEO Yosuke Matsuda, and he went on to say with Game Informer, "It's very hard to find them sometimes because back in the day, you just made them," referring to the games, "put them out there, and you were done. You didn't think how you were going to sell them later down the road. Sometimes customers ask, why haven't you released this game yet? And the truth of the matter is because we don't know where it's gone. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but in some cases, we don't know where the code is anymore." So pretty much it's a common story within the games industry for some legacy titles. One of the biggest obstacles in properly preserving games, of course. So this is one of my main talking points for a Final Fantasy VIII remake. A modern visual overhaul that would put it right alongside the stunning beauty of Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. Can you imagine walking over the world map after leaving Balamb Garden, heading to the Fire Cavern or Balamb Town, or even Delling City while preparing for the assassination attempt at the end of Disc 1? The Final Fantasy VII Remake has really opened our eyes into what these things could look like, and I'm really here for it. I honestly wouldn't even consider this game to be remade using that old school template. I mean, we already have that with the original and the remaster. It's a bit of a different story with Final Fantasy IX, for example, but I would be okay if we ended up getting something that was more one-to-one in terms of a remake for that. But for Final Fantasy VIII, it's gotta be a modern visual route. Okay, this is going to be a little bit hard here, so try and bear with me. I've written this down and it kind of makes sense, so try and follow along here. But I'm going to do my best to discuss the gameplay in a way that things could be improved. This is one of the most divisive things about Final Fantasy VIII, and if you love Final Fantasy VIII or you hate Final Fantasy VIII, you know that the junction system and the magic system is one of the things that you either love or you hate. But everything I'm saying from here is from the standpoint that this game would not be turn-based, but a real-time battle system similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake. So yeah, let's start off with the magic and the junction system. The junction system would likely need to be reimagined to balance accessibility and depth while addressing some of the many criticisms of the original. To simplify the grind of stocking magic early on, one idea is to make magic unlimited once drawn, as long as it's stocked or equipped. For example, drawing fire from an enemy would grant infinite casts, but then you have to keep it on your character to use. Do we then allow the character to learn the spell over time like Final Fantasy VI with the Magicite system, or do we keep it as a purely equipable item? What do you think? Characters could still hold up to like 32 spells, but the number of slots would be tied to the equipped Guardian forces. Shiva might grant a few slots as a magic-focused GF, while Ifrit, being more physical, it might only provide maybe 2 or 3 or 4. This would encourage strategic Guardian Force assignments, influencing both magic availability and junction builds. The junction system itself could also see a lot of changes. Characters might be limited to equipping maybe 3 or 4 Guardian Forces, emphasizing party building, strategic party building, especially during the moments where your party is split up. I think this would really encourage more experimentation in character builds and unique playstyles for each party member. Magic used for junction would also retain its full stat boosting potential without needing to stock like 100 copies of each spell, making spells like fire add more significant stat boosts or elemental effects, while other healing spells, for example, might enhance resistances or core attributes. Look, I know that's very info heavy and confusing, but I think if implemented into a similar way, what I've just described, it would allow for character customization to still happen in a similar way to the original, but giving a little bit more clarity than the original, kind of. Now with a remake, what do we think about level scaling? Of course, in the original, enemy levels scale with your character, often outpacing your growth. A level 5 character can, easily handle a level 5 enemy, but a level 30 enemy will pose more significant challenge to a level 30 character. Junctioning obviously helps mitigate this, so keeping your levels low is often advantageous. Leveling up provides minimal stat increases as the game focuses on stat boosts through junctioning. Certain Guardian forces can improve stats during level up, so perfectionists might delay leveling until obtaining some of these Guardian forces. However, strong junction setups are sufficient enough to complete the game without relying solely on those boosts. So we do still kind of have to have the junction system intact for this to work. I don't think we can completely do without this. It would totally throw away one of the original and most unique concepts from the original Final Fantasy VIII. So I'm happy for it to be there so long as the junction and magic system can be maybe a little bit more streamlined, a bit better than the original, or do we just go totally without? I don't know. I would really love to hear your thoughts. Now hang on, before we move on to the next part of the video, did you guys know that almost 92% of the people that watch my channel on the regular are not subscribed? So yes, only 8.5% of the people who watch my channel are actually subscribed. So hey, let's try and turn this around. If you guys like weekly Final Fantasy content or weekly JRPG content, I would love to have you here each week for some more new content. So anyway, on to how we can maybe expand on the story. I think you guys might agree with some of my points here. I would love to see some expanded storytelling in a Final Fantasy VIII Remake as well. The story of Final Fantasy VIII has strong themes of love, memory, and time, but also leaves many aspects underexplored or just in general vague. A remake would offer a chance to expand on the narrative while addressing a lot of its shortcomings, deepening character development, and clarifying a lot of plot points. One key improvement could involve the fleshing out of characters. While Squall's journey from an aloof loner to a compassionate leader is central to the story, the development of other party members like Quistis, Zell, Selphie could be expanded a little bit more. More backstory or side quests could explore their motivations and relationships. How do they feel about being seeds caught in a complex war? This would add depth and make their contributions to the plot feel a little bit more significant. Safer's arc in particular could really benefit from additional scenes to delve into his ideals, his relationship with Squall, and what ultimately drives his alliance with Adea and his pursuit of becoming the Sorceress's Knight. The game's romance between Squall and Rinoa is a major highlight, but sometimes can feel rushed. A remake could add more interactions and moments that show their growing bond a little bit more slowly over time, making their connection more believable and impactful. Similarly, Laguna's storyline, while obviously really intriguing, could use some more integration with the main plot. Additional flashbacks or sequences could link his actions more directly to Squall's journey that would help tie the two timelines together a little bit more cohesively. I loved the Laguna flashback sequences, so I'm quite interested in seeing more of those. And yeah, let's reinstate that content we've heard about. I mean, why not add that in there? And the central plot about time compression and Ultimecia is one of the most divisive elements. A remake could provide greater clarity about Ultimecia's motivations, her origins, and why she seeks to compress and control time. The revelation that all the main characters grew up together in the orphanage but forgot due to Guardian Force usage is another point that could be handled a little bit more effectively. The remake could either foreshadow this twist more subtly or expand on its emotional weight, showing how these repressed memories affect the group dynamics. It can't just be all too convenient like it is in the original. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, and I don't know, never really landed with me, and I'm sure you too. And finally, a remake could introduce new content that adds extra layers to the story, such as side missions or expanded lore in general, and additional character interactions during quieter moments or during traversing the world map. These enhancements would allow the story to feel more complete and more emotionally resonant, while staying true to the original game's spirit. Keep the roadmap of Final Fantasy VIII intact, but fill it out a little bit better along the way. Okay, this is a little bit crazy here, and I ended up going a little bit further than I thought I was going to, but it just makes sense because triple triad is so fun. I really do enjoy triple triad, so of course I'm going to want more of it, just like I do with Queen's Blood from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's so addictive, it's not even funny. So yeah, triple triad, one of the most beloved minigames in Final Fantasy, could be expanded significantly at a remake to make it even more engaging and rewarding. The gameplay itself could feature deeper mechanics such as cards with unique active abilities that trigger during matches, adding layers of strategy and variety to deck building. New modes like tournaments or co-op challenges could provide a fresh way to play and test your skills. And imagine this, online multiplayer allowing us to challenge each other in real time. This could include ranked matches, friendly games, and global leaderboards with seasonal events introducing exclusive cards and rules to keep players invested. I guess though it might be better to have this as its own standalone app outside of the game to maintain, or perhaps it could transfer via a Square Enix account. So with that being said, extending beyond the main game, a companion app or whatever of Triple Triad could allow us to compete, collect, and trade cards on the go with progress synced to the main game. I can imagine that this integration would make Triple Triad a more dynamic and standalone aspect of Final Fantasy VIII while enhancing its role within the game's world. Those updates could transform Triple Triad into not just a fun diversion, but a fully developed strategic element of the remake. The card pool could also be expanded, featuring not just characters and monsters from Final Fantasy VIII, but also references to other games in the series. Rare cards could be tied to challenging quests and secret areas or achievements, or basically anything that encourages exploration and completion. Card customization and upgrades could provide even more depth, allowing us to unlock alternate artwork, foil effects. This personalization would make collecting feel a lot more rewarding. And yeah, it could also be integrated more deeply into the main game. Winning matches against key NPCs might unlock special dialogue, side quests, or unique items, while some cards could even grant in-game benefits like stat boosts or maybe even an exclusive Guardian Force, making this minigame feel a lot more interconnected with the overall experience. I mean, I think the more I talk about this, the more that I actually need this to happen. What do you guys think? And lastly, we could just add some stuff into this game that would bring it from the late 90s to now with a few things. So as mentioned before earlier in the video, a significant improvement would be fully overhauled visual graphics, presentations similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake Rebirth, bringing the game's world and characters to life with modern graphics. A modern coat of paint could really enhance storytelling, particularly in emotional or pivotal moments, while exploring some of the more iconic locations of the game could feel more immersive with modern lighting and intricate designs. For story enhancements, voice acting would breathe new life into characters and improve emotional resonance tenfold. Expanded dialogue options and cutscenes could really add depth to relationships and clarify key plot points, especially in areas where the original left questions unanswered. Great voice acting, as we know, is an absolute must. Again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and even Final Fantasy XVI show us that voice acting is an absolute must in modern day Final Fantasy titles. As we see with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I love seamless exploration between towns and from points to points on the overworld map. I'd love to be able to move from town to town with nothing holding me back in the world of Final Fantasy VIII. One thing that would actually be really great for modern enhancement and even just for replayability factor would be some side quests or extra seed missions. It would be cool to have almost Crisis Core style bite-sized mission. Great for grabbing experience points or items, or even showcasing specific character movesets. I think this would be a cool way to maybe maximize your time if you only had 20 or 30 minutes to play. And maybe the biggest ask of the modern enhancements section of this video, one installment. Yes, I know, it's probably not going to happen, but give me this game, let me play it in a 100-hour or 120-hour package. I'm happy to wait for it as long as it takes for the one game to be made, but I don't think I can wait a series of like 9 years for Final Fantasy VIII. But hey, It's unrealistic, but I can dream, right? So overall, a remake would really give Final Fantasy VIII the chance to connect with a new generation of gamers, many of whom might have missed out on it due to its age, or a lot of people may just be looking at the original or the remaster and just think, this doesn't look really great. I think a remake would also cement its legacy alongside other remakes, like Final Fantasy VII, for example, and the potential Final Fantasy IX remake that who knows if or when that's ever going to come out. So what do you think about a Final Fantasy VIII remake? Should we have one? Obviously, it's probably a pipe dream at this point, considering how long Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy has taken. But yeah, I'd be interested to know. I think this is something that I would really love to see personally, and I would love to know what you have to think as well. So thanks so much for watching again. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below. We'll see you again on the next video. Bye-bye.